Like everybody else, I've been thinking about the new Indian coach too. It's a very, very important appointment. It's a critical appointment. We need to think through it very carefully. So my mind's been whirring a little bit. But before we get into what we want from a new coach, I think it's time to just take a step back and say thank you very much to Rahul Dravid, a magnificent servant of Indian cricket, extraordinary work ethic, very patient, very dignified, and I think he's done a great job as coach of India. So Rahul, your second innings was excellent. With the kind of first innings you had, the second innings can never match up. But wow, what a good second innings you had. So thank you very much. Now, before we start looking at names as a successor to Rahul Dravid, I think it's important to know where this Indian team is headed, because the personality of the coach is going to be so critical. You look at players like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Jasprit Bumrah, strong characters, people who've seen such a lot in life, who are fantastic performers. If the team is going to be centered around those, as I expect the test match team to be, then I think your coach actually needs to be a milder person, almost a behind-the-scenes, quieter person who's willing to put in a lot of hard work without seeking the limelight. A very Gary Kirsten kind of person who'll say, my job is almost to be a servant leader, to help you become better. You need that kind of person. But if there is going to be a transition, if there's going to be a lot of newer players coming through, relatively less experienced players, people who are maybe a little more insecure, not knowing where they're going, then I think you need a stronger personality. It almost becomes a coach's team. It never becomes completely a coach's team because it's the captain who takes the team out onto the ground. But for the test team, I think you need a milder person. It's got to be the captain's team. It becomes a little bit more of the coach's team if you have a team that's headed in a different direction. There, maybe you need a slightly stronger, slightly more magnetic, slightly more powerful personality. Maybe you're looking at that Andy Flower, Gautam Gambhir kind. I know I said magnetic. They're not exuberant, but they are both people with strong work ethics and powerful thoughts. So those kind of people. I'm not throwing names. I'm saying that kind of personality is what you're looking at. Ideally, I would have liked to have seen 4 or 5 Indian names that you can choose from, because when you're a former India player or an experienced person who's seen the system, you understand where the players are coming from. That's critical. I'm looking around and I don't see 4 or 5 Indian players, and that is something that worries me a little bit. 4 or 5 Indian players are willing to do the job. I must add that as a caveat. So if we are actually going to look overseas, then there are 2 or 3 things India needs to be very careful about. Number 1 on that list, whoever comes to coach India has to genuinely love this country, its culture, has got to take the time to understand this country's culture. Everybody says they love India, but they have to genuinely love it. I mean, I remember a time when it used to be a punishment posting almost to come to India, and people would make jokes about India, often in very bad taste. Now it is the place you want to be, right? It's the place where all the money is, where all the opportunity is. So everybody loves India. You've got to be able to see through that and say who genuinely loves India. He's got to be a very good communicator, because increasingly there'll be players coming through from the heartland of India. They'll carry their insecurities with them. They'll carry extraordinary ambition with them, but they're cut from a different cloth. And you've got to be able to respect them. You've got to be able to understand where young India is coming from. So I think if you're looking at an overseas coach, you've got to spend a lot of time to be absolutely certain that this person likes India, understands India, is willing to spend 10 months of the year in India and not think about saying, oh God, I've got to spend another 2 months in India. That is critical. The person you pick is as important as the credentials that that person brings to the table. I'd also like to see a younger committee picking the coach, someone who understands the modern game. Increasingly, the coach is going to be looking at white ball cricket more than test match cricket. So whoever comes in must have a deep understanding of where T20 cricket is going, where white ball cricket is going, because I tell you, it is a completely different beast. I talk to people in the commentary box now who've only recently retired, and I think, wow, they just look at T20 cricket differently. A lot of us try to stay in touch, but when we hear these people, it's a different game, which leads me to my final premise. I think we need a younger coach to be in charge of white ball cricket, and I think we need a calmer, more experienced head to look at test match cricket. I know India said that we only want one coach, but I'd still like to look at that very closely and have two different coaches for two different formats. Sometimes it can lead to trouble if there's one more dominant personality. It tends to pull the players more towards that line of thinking. That's something that comes with the territory. But this game is changing very fast. And to expect one player to have, one person to have 10 months, 11 months, all the time focused on the team, thinking about the team, it can get a little too much. I know you can take time off, but it can almost get a little too much. So my recommendations are these. If you can get a great Indian coach, nothing like it. If you're looking at a foreign coach, ensure that that person understands and loves India very much, is very much in tune with the modern game, and look at different people. Look at a young white ball coach and a very experienced test match coach. I hope we find the right person, because you had some very good experiences and some not so good experiences. So need to look at it very carefully. We're going to be doing a lot of interesting things on this channel. So do like, do subscribe. I look forward to hearing from you.